I like to play a video game, and the reason is because a video game is fun for me to play. Thank you. Now, I want to start this video by saying that I love video games. You see my previous videos, you can tell that I make them, so I like them at least that much. And then definitely my preferred medium of entertainment. Now that being said, lately they kinda suck. And I gotta agree with that because I would prefer to be on 2004 right now. Played all those games for the first time again, that's for sure. But now, that being said, I don't want to ramble on why video games suck or how they suck. I don't really care that much. But I wanna get to what a good one is. I wanna try to discover what we're actually aiming for, so that's the question I'm gonna try to answer with this video. What is a good video game?
But let's be honest, guys, the best game of all time is Super Monkey Ball Adventure for the GameCube.
Now you might be wondering, who are you? Who are you to say what is good and what is bad and what I should be playing and what I shouldn't be playing and what pedigree do you have to be making any assessment in the quality of art? I haven't done anything at all ever. Don't trust me. Don't listen to me. This video is mostly for me, so I have something to reference later. That being said, I'm making it anyway, so if you watch it, that's your fault. If you listen to me, that's also your fault, I'm cleaning my hands right now. I'm nobody, don't listen to me. Now with that out of the way, yeah, video games are an art. I don't think that's arguable. Because they are an art, that means they are subjective. But the fact that they are subjective doesn't mean they're not garbage ones that nobody wants to play. I know you can think of like 50 examples out of your head, like the same idea repeated over and over again throughout the decades at this point, and they suck. So if there is the amalgamation of all bad games in one hand that we can recognize at this point, there must be the opposite, the amalgamation of all that's good and wonderful that we want to play over and over again.
Right then, buddy, I'm going to shit yourself.
In the words of Robert M. Pirsig on his book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, he claims that quality is the moment in which the subject becomes aware of the object, which means that quality is an event, is temporal. So you can say that the hate or love that comes into the subject after being in contact with the object is only dependent on the previous experiences of the subject. All that to say that when I'm making this amalgamation of good things, I'm not gonna be using the games I like per se. I'm gonna be using a better representation of the collective consciousness. And for this video, that's gonna be the Game Awards.
Game of the Year winner is Elden Ring!
Now, looking at this list, I want to point out the obvious thing, which I wish I didn't have to point out, but it's just the fact that none of these are buggy, garbage, money-milking games. They're all what I'm gonna categorize as moral games. And by moral, I mean that the social contract between the player and the developer is not broken. As in, the player doesn't feel betrayed or robbed after playing the game, which is a pretty low bar. And that's the whole category. Please, kill me.
Big thanks to HBO and the support they've given us, and a lot of big thanks to...
Now, the second thing that I'm gonna point out is it's a bit weird, and it's the fact that these are mostly third-person real-time video games, which doesn't have to be the case, right? Because there is a big fan base for first-person games and turn-based combat games. And I'm gonna be honest, I like both. Like, I'm a big fan of tactics game, I really enjoy Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm a big fan of first-person shooters. Like, I could play Doom Eternal and the Bungie Halo franchise for ever. If that's everything I have to play forever, I'd be pretty good, I'd be fine. But that being said, one thing that they do not do very well apparently is win the Game Awards Game of the Year, and that is the axiom that I'm basing this critique on. Now, of course, Overwatch is in third person and Baldur's Gate 3 is in really real time, right? Well, that being said, these are the only exceptions in the list, and Overwatch is real time and Baldur's Gate 3 is mostly real time and third person. And I have a bit of a theory on why this is the case. My theory comes from the book Game Feel by John Swick, in which he has this theory of, well, game feel. He calls game feel the combination of real-time controllers, spatial simulation, and polish. Now, all these games have great real-time controllers. Overwatch 1 being one of the greatest esports of all time, until it became an immoral spawn of hell, right? And Sekiro being the reason for most of my wet dreams. Flat out, you know what real-time controls are. A different concept that fits into the idea of real-time controllers is flow state. Everybody's heard of it, you know what it is, I'm not gonna explain it too much. But I believe that these real-time controllers need to either promote or facilitate flow state. And I'm not gonna get on how to get there because of course that's a little more complicated. But we definitely need to have both. The second point of game feel, spatial simulation, it's a bit more complicated. My main John Swick explains this as, does the place make sense? As in, if I do a lightning attack into water, does it increase the arrow effect? Or if I put an arrow into a bonfire, does it catch on fire and then deals fire damage when it hits? Is the space congruent? Now, of course, the best example of this on this list is Breath of the Wild, because it's all about the sandbox. It's all about the environment and the player interacting with each other. And not only that, but the AI also follows the exact same rules as the player. So they are influenced by the environment and can influence the environment in the exact same way that the player does. Another way in which this presents itself is also just on the narrative of a game, because effectively in video games, narrative is nothing but an input to direct the player towards a direction. Which basically means that ludonarrative dissonance is nothing but faulty spatial simulation, because all it does is influence the player in a way that does not match the actions that the player actually has to take to, beat the game. It's incongruent, there's dissonance.
You will see that Skull and Bones is a fully fledged game, he said. It's a very big game, and we feel that people will really see how vast and complete that game is. It's a really full triple, quadruple A game that will deliver in the long run.
Go to the waypoint.
My boat ran out of stamina.
And lastly, for game feel, we have polish. And polish is definitely about the coat of paint on the game, more than the actual interactions. It's about informing the player audiovisually about what happened or what's going on right now. A perfect example of polish is the difference in between a shield and a parry on Sekiro. That noise, that clanking, those sparks, there's a difference, and you know it, that's good polish. Now of course, the best example of polish on this list is The Last of Us 2. There is a lot that game does wrong, but polish is definitely not one of them. They nail every crunching little noise, every visual. I do not think video games need to look any better at all. Like me on my free time, sometimes I just watch compilations of people breaking glass on The Last of Us 2. It's that good. But again, all the visuals are independent of the interactions. They're just a way to inform the player that these interactions did happen and to what degree they happen. So The Last of Us 2, it just has the perfect coat of paint. It's polish. Example of this type of game is, of course, Journey, Shadow of the Colossus, or anything by
Fumito Ueda.
Now you combine those three and you get game feel. Now I just nerded out at you for a while there, but basically what I'm trying to say is that for a game to be good, it needs to feel good. And when I say feel good, you know what I mean. I thought I was done with this video, but I'm not even done recording. Alright, now this is the last thing. I just explained why the games on the list are real time, okay, with all those concepts I regurgitated at you. But now I said the second thing about the games on the list being third person. mostly third person, and I think that can be explained by a different concept within the same book of Swinky Poo. That concept is called proprioception. Proprioception is defined as the body's ability to sense location and movement. This sense explains phenomena like me being able to touch my fingertips without looking, or more complicated ones like the way we can drive without being able to see the ends of our cars at all times, right? We don't hit most things most of the time. It's a pretty impressive thing to do. Now, I think that concept applies to video games as well. And I believe that the third-person camera facilitates proprioception towards the player character. And that's for two reasons. Number one, it allows us to be aware of what's behind our players at least a couple centimeters, which is something we do in real life when something's close behind us. We have all these different senses to tell us what's around. And number two is that it allows us to see what's happening with the player's body. Because us as humans, we can feel how our body is at all times, right? So not being aware of that does not allow for proper proprioception, making it so the third-person camera is just the one that facilitates the extrapolation of proprioception.
Snake. Why are we still here? Just to suffer. Every night, I can feel my leg and my arm.
There you go. Now to summarize, a good game is moral, feels good, and is third person. We got it. Now, of course, that's a very simplistic view on what makes a game good, obviously, but I think it's a good start. Yeah, it was a bit high level, you know, it doesn't get to nitty gritties of what makes a good game, but you start here so you can come down and understand the rest of the complexities. And obviously, this is a bad video for me to make because I make video games and I'm gonna be held to this standard of quality, right? And that sucks, but I think that's fine. I think that's what we should be making games for. Now, before I close the video, I want to thank all the people that subscribe to my channel, even though I have 3 videos, that we are a whole 29 people now. I want to also be very thankful for all the great comments that we got on the first video of mine. And thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.